insights for personal and soul purpose, life purpose missions. It seems like a lot of people tend to are looking for avenues on trying to find their life mission or why am I here and what's going on, what's my purpose. And today, what I like to discuss with you about how astrology can be used for tools to gain insight on a soul's purpose or your soul's journey. But before we begin, I would love for you just to give a brief info for my audience that'll be listening on a little bit about yourself and how did you get into astrology, and we can go in from there.
Well, yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on your podcast. My name is Naomi Elliott. Most people know me as Maitreya. I am an astrologer, I am a self discovery coach, and what I do is I teach people how to really get to the depths of their self-discovery process or journey through astrology. How did I get into astrology? I've always been drawn to astronomy, but because I've come from quite a religious background, I was quite restricted to what I could study and how deep I could go into things like astrology. Um, So from a young age, I've always been researching the stars, researching the sun, researching planets. And then when it came to, I actually came into astrology from a musical perspective because I'm first an artist. Um, and I found a lot of metaphysical correlations through music, one of which was numerology. And it's funny because that's kind of my background of even coming from church. My church taught a lot on numerology and especially from a biblical perspective, but it opened me up to this metaphysical field, and I learned how to play music through astrology using numbers and learning how to activate or tapping into specific energies within that those numbers or using those numbers. And then it came to a place where I needed to go deeper into my journey. I found that the things that was presented to me through religion wasn't actually doing what it needed to do in terms of like really understanding who I am. And that's been my journey for my whole life, literally trying to understand who I am, what am I meant to be doing on this earth, how am I meant to be doing it, who am I meant to be connecting with, all of these questions that we all go and internally always trying to seek out and find these answers. I was determined to actually find a way of getting those answers for myself. And so I started to connect with people within the metaphysical field who were also astrologers who showed me this other side, and I was like, okay, this is quite interesting. It sounded like a lot of jargon to me initially, like it does to a lot of people, hearing, people talking about planets and aspects, and you're like, okay, but what does that actually mean? And I did come into astrology just like that. Being quite confused, but I was still quite intrigued to what this all was. So I spent more time digging deeper, really understanding the history of astrology, how it came, how it's become what it is today, and how I can use it for myself, how I can really understand all of the personal aspects of myself and all of the subconscious and unconscious aspects of myself, which is much more difficult to understand. And we can go throughout our lives, continuously going around in circles because these things are not actually answered, not realizing that your blueprint is actually found in your astrological chart. So kind of talking a bit about your astrological chart or your natal chart, as someone may know it as that. What that would be is literally like a snapshot of what the cosmos looked like when you were born. So for example, right now, if someone took a snapshot of where all of the planetary placements are, where the sun is, where Mercury is, where Jupiter is, what constellations they are in. Whether it's the constellation of Gemini, whether it's the constellation of Cancer, whether it's the constellation of Capricorn, and then also seeing the relationships between these planets, how they impact, how they, with Jupiter being close to Saturn right now, what type of impact is, or what type of influence is that going to create in the cosmos? Now, obviously, we are here on planet Earth, so we're learning to, or we're understanding the perspective of what all of those things are from the perspective of planet Earth. And for those that may kind of been like, okay, well, how does this really work? Quantum physics, quantum mechanics, all of those things literally is the scientific term for how astrology actually plays out. So if we look at astronomy would be, the planets, the placements and stuff. Astrology would be looking at how these placements, as I was explaining before, how they all impact on us, on a collective level, on a personal level. And astrology plays out in so many different ways. Astrology was known as the mother of sciences, and astrology connects to every single science you could ever think of. Medical science. I've even been giving out a lot of information about how astrology connects to locations, something called astrocartography, where you can understand the energy of an area or a location or a country, just by looking at their what are the ley lines and what astrological influences are influencing that area. You can look at it for looking at your past lives, understanding what was my past life, what is it that I'm learning to transmute in this lifetime, what are all the patterns and what are all the because especially when it comes to your moon sign, or just looking at the moon in particular, the moon goes in phases, it goes in cycles. It goes around the same cycle over and over again, from waxing to waning, from waxing to waning. So when we look at our moon signs, that often is representative of the repetitive patterns that we often go through, sometimes our daily motions. But if we look at it on an emotional and a subconscious level, these would be the things that constantly keep getting in your way, the things that constantly, sometimes can be the influence of you manifesting the same situation over and over again, because I've spoken about how the moon is what's known as the prison of the soul. This is what we're learning to break out of, these limitations, these restrictions. And the reason why it's perceived like that is because the moon in itself is actually a foreign object within our system. It's actually something that it's a satellite. It's something that is what is often seen as almost like the this is what is creating all the illusions. This is what's creating all of the psychological disruptions within people. I've written a blog talking about the influences between astrology, the moon in particular, and mental health. And they've known this for a long time, that the moon has been a major influencer of mental health and of psychotic disorders. When we look at the word lunar or lunacy, where does that come from? Lunacy was something that was brought in the 18th century, and this was because they started to observe that the moon had very visible effects on people, especially within the full moon. And those that work in events or in places where they're around a lot of people, you'll notice around the full moon, it's always a bit psycho. There's always something crazy that's potentially can happen. But they've always known this, and they've known things like dementia has been one of the main influences of that has been the moon. But going back to the topic of lunacy, um, um, lunacy, the difference between lunacy and insanity is actually, insanity is an incurable condition, mental condition, where someone is literally classified as insane. Um, Whereas lunacy is someone who has been temporarily afflicted by the moon. So there has actually been cases. There's actually a case where a soldier, a British soldier, I believe, he had just out of the blue gone and killed his comrade, and in his defense, he used the Lunacy Act. So these are things that are very much well known. Like, these are things that they know that these influences are there, but it's only now that these sciences are starting to come back to us, and we're learning how to utilize these sciences again. These sciences have always been a part of our history, but due to religious influences and their own agendas, this is something that we've forgotten that thankfully we're learning to discover again. So yeah, it was a bit of a long intro, but
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. There is a part that you talked specifically that I like that you mentioned, was astrology being the mother of all sciences. Typically with Western ideology, as we see here in the States, and I believe you're in London, a lot of times people like to look at astrology as being real woo-woo, or that's just, that's not real. But as we look back in these ancient cultures, particularly if you look at the Kemetic cultures and Sumerian cultures and different these ancient cultures, they all used astrology in tandem with astronomy. And so I want to kind of talk more about this concept of the moon that you brought up with, as far as it having an effect on us. And it seems like you were trying to say, is it an organic kind of like satellite? Because it's not part of our natural, I guess, the natural order of our cosmos, but it's something that's been implemented as a satellite. Is that what you were trying to explain to us?
Yeah, it's something that is not considered organic, and it's almost like, how I see it is like a broadcaster of the collective unconscious. And so those that are not in control of themselves, or able to manage themselves, can get taken away by this collective unconscious of all of these shadows and all of this stuff inside of it. And so even we're talking about astrology, a lot of the time people kind of worship astrology like, yeah, this is the be all end all. Astrology in itself is a program, just like the moon, right? It's astrological programming. So as you've come into this third dimensional construct, which is the matrix, you've now come into a program. Now your natal chart can show you the program that you're now operating on. Your job is now to break out of the program, which is what your moon is. Your moon is, which is literally the prison of your soul. It's the housing of your soul. So you're learning how to break out of all of the programs and the influences and the patterns and the cycles and the loops. You're learning how to break out of that, but astrology gives you a great indication as to what that is. What exactly are you breaking out of in particular, like personally?
Okay, it's kind of like saying astrology is it's definitely a tool to utilize to kind of show you, like you said, a snapshot of the energy signatures that you're already seem to be operating or seem to be resonating at. And it seems like the goal with astrology is not to be trapped in your natal chart. Right. So people say, oh, I may Leo, so
Right.
therefore I'm always going to be this, or I'm a Capricorn, so
Right.
I'm always going to be like this. But
Exactly.
more so to give you a snapshot and then learn how to ascend from your natal chart so you're not controlled by it. Is that
Yeah,
safe to
essentially
say?
you're transmuting the whole zodiac because you are the whole zodiac. So just because you may be a Leo sun doesn't mean to say that you can't access Cancer energies or Capricorn energies, because you would have Cancer in your chart, you would have Capricorn in your chart. It's just what, if you've got planets there, what planets are there, or um what's just what is the relationship to Cancer in your chart or Capricorn in your chart. But it's not keeping yourself in a box. It's learning to transcend and transmute this construct, because this is a construct. 3D matrix is a construct. So yeah, I'm hoping that answered your question.
Definitely. I'd like to piggyback off that. We were talking about, again, it being the mother of all sciences,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that can help some people who are kind of apprehensive to look into astrology.
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself, astrology, kind of similar to what you were saying with your story, I came up from a religious background, but I've always
Mm-hmm.
had this inkling of astrology and the mystical
Mm-hmm.
nature of information.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to delve into it, I realized, oh, it's more than just what they call my sun sign. Like, oh,
Right.
I'm more than just a Libra. There's
Mm-hmm.
these other aspects within me. Well, what does this all mean? So for
Mm-hmm.
somebody who is just kind of starting out and wanting to look into astrology, what would be some advice or tips that you would give them to start on learning some insight of themselves?
Right. So the first thing I would say, and the first thing that everyone gravitates to is their sun, moon, and rising sign. So everyone would instinctively know your sun sign because the sun never changes depending on like when you're born. So you would know your sun sign. The sun is what, first of all, let me kind of give a I like to use this example a lot of the time. Those who I've also streaming live as well. So those who tune into my content have heard this example a lot of the time. So I like to see the sun, moon, and your rising sign, or also known as your ascendant, as um, different compartments within your home. So if we look at your sun sign would be what would be your front room. So everyone uh everyone who comes to your home, when you're most comfortable, they would see your sun. So I'm a Gemini sun, so people will be able to see that I love to talk. I'm very social. I love to make connections with people, and so this is something that would be very the most visible parts of my personality. um when we look at the rising sign, your ascendant, and it's also classified as the first house. Now, just talking about the ascendant a little bit. Um, the ascendant is what. So when you're actually putting in your date of time. Sorry, your date of birth in the birth calculator, it will ask you for your time of birth. Now, the reason why it asks you that is because the ascendant is formulated off what time you're actually born. So this actually shapes out all of your houses. And I know that's a different content. The houses is something else to kind of go into, but this is why, for example, someone with a Gemini sun that's born um May 29th, to someone who's born June June 20th, they're going to be two completely different people, even though they're in the same time. And even if it's someone who's born the day after, or even 2 hours after, an hour after, or even in a different location, doesn't matter. Every single chart is as unique as your fingerprint. This is why it's actually called your blueprint. But your ascendant is literally the imprint that you're bringing into this earth. It's the imprint of your spirit, or the expression of your spirit. So this is what people may pick up or perceive of you. So it's your aura. So if you're Leo rising, someone may pick up a very bright aura from you, you know, so, or they might find that your how you present yourself can be quite dramatic sometimes, or, you know, but again, that's a completely different story. But the ascendant would be like your corridor. When you open your door, your foyer, that's the first thing that people see of you. You may not be aware that that's what you're presenting, because sometimes the ascendant can be the mask that we like to present and we like to hold on ourselves. So then there's that. So then then you move on to the moon sign. The moon sign is representative of your emotional nature, your private nature, your subconscious influences. And this would be like your bedroom, because not everyone sees this part of yourself. This is the part that people see when they get close to you, when they start to have deep emotional, intimate connections with you. They get to see this part of you. So one of the first things I would say to begin to understand is learning how to break up your personality in those three little boxes: the sun, the most visible parts, your identity, your vitality, then your ascendant, your expression, how you're perceived, your moon, your emotional influences. Really beginning to break up these different parts of yourself, because you get to see yourself from, or this is the beginning of being able to understand that you are actually a multi-dimensional and multifaceted being. You're not just one person or just one expression of yourself. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And there's another part that I like to add in that you mentioned, as far as like when it comes to astrology, it's a spiritual tool, like unlike anything else, whether someone's using tarot, oracle cards, runes. These are all tools. And one thing I thought was interesting that you said was sometimes people start to worship the very thing that a tool to help them get insight.
Right.
And so with that understanding, I'd like to add in as far as like, where can one start? If somebody was interested in getting a natal reading chart, is there a way they can contact you or have your information to get that?
Well, yeah, definitely. So I have a website, www.soul-reconnection.com, and you can book a natal chart reading on there. What I've actually done with my readings, because I present my natal chart readings a bit differently, I've separated out different sections of the chart, because when it comes to things like astrology and anything to do with divination, or anything where people are like, yeah, tell me about myself, people love to be able to be told about themselves, but are you actually absorbing the information? And there's so much information that can be brought out within your natal chart as a whole. So what I've done is I've broken it up into looking at the personal aspects of your chart, looking at your communication, your relationships, your emotional makeup, the body, like the really 3D kind of things. Then looking at the social aspect of your chart, how is it that you connect to other people and the people around you, looking at work and all those types of things, and then looking at the transpersonal aspects of your chart, which is looking at your life purpose, looking at aspirations, how you evolve yourself, and then I've got the karmic influences, which really dig deep into the shadow aspects of yourself, and the parts of self that we don't really like to acknowledge or deal with, the inner demons, all of that kind of stuff. So what I've done is that I've separated it out so that people can really understand in depth these areas of their chart, rather than just me reel off an overview of what your chart is kind of saying, if that makes sense. So yeah, if you would like a reading, you can contact me again on www.soul-reconnection.com. I also do distribute a lot of content on my YouTube channel, which is Soul-Reconnection. And I'm currently going through a series that is helping people to begin to understand the different components of astrology. And I also have some stuff that will be coming out within over the next few months that will definitely be able to help in really learning the different components of astrology and learning how to apply it to yourself and learning how to read your own chart, because that's one thing that I'm really about is learning how to, or being in a position to empower people to not just rely on people to read for them or do, and it's good, because it pays my bills, but at the end of the day, I want people to be empowered to know that they can learn themselves. That's exactly, I'm no higher than anyone else. The same knowledge that I have and the same access that I was exposed to and resources I was exposed to learn astrology, you can also learn that too, to this degree or higher, because I don't consider myself as uh, um, a master astrologer or anything like that, but it is something that you can learn yourself, and you can learn to implement yourself in your own daily practices.
And I'll ensure I leave your links and ways they connect with you.
Right.
I really love how you said that. It's about people being empowered. Typically, we see sometimes, whether it's religious communities or other spiritual communities, it's as if it's a one person who can only have all the knowledge, and they're not allowing people or the followers to really learn it for themselves. And I love that that's one of your philosophies for others to be self-empowered and learn this information and, again, utilize it in their life to better themselves.
Definitely. That's what I'm about, because I feel like there's a lot of herd mentality, be my follower. Like, that's not what I'm about. Like, I really want to be in a position where I'm surrounded by people who are also empowered in themselves, because it also empowers me to be more empowered in myself. I don't want to be depleting myself by just giving information and it not actually doing anything, and I'm the only person who's benefiting from it. It's a very, very lonely world. So I'm really just passionate about empowering people to empower themselves and just being part of a powerful community. That's what it's essentially about.
Okay, so before we close it, I have one final question for you. As far as astrology is concerned, again, we're talking to the person who has an interest but doesn't know where to start. What would be something you would tell this person as far as what they're to gain from utilizing astrology as a tool in their life?
So, one of the main benefits of astrology is clarity, is understanding. Okay, so because there's a different, okay, here's my Gemini coming in, because I always have to find the other side and cover the other side of the argument. But I feel like you said it earlier about sometimes people can use astrology as an excuse, like, okay, so I'm a Leo, so this is why I do this, and I'm a Cancer, so this is why I'm so sensitive, and this is why I need people. And no, that's not what it's about. It gives you clarity to understand the influences that are taking place, but it's for you to now learn to be accountable for these things, because at the end of the day, this is all about self-evolution. So you can have, again, more clarity of self, understanding the influences not only throughout your life, because you can go there's nothing that you can't use your chart for to get information about. I don't really know much about my family or history or things like that, but looking into my chart, it gives me a very interesting insight that now I'm starting to find confirmations of as I come into physical information. Astrology can help you in business. This is something I'm moving into, in learning learning to teach people to understand how astrology can be utilized in like learning when to launch products, learning when to launch services, learning how to brand yourself, because you know that's one of the biggest thing. You want to make sure that the brands and the businesses that we create is aligned with who we actually are, rather than trying to be something and creating clashes and all that kind of stuff. So astrology can be used for even giving medical insight. You know, I struggle, or I've had a lot of struggles from childhood with my own learning processes, and even just like I've had um, a lot of issues with my brain, actual brain, from a child. But even looking into my astrological chart, seeing I have Saturn on my third house, which deals with the realm of the mind, the realm of communication. I struggle in being able to communicate myself. Saturn would add a restriction in that type of area. So just being able to understand that, and even understanding your mental health, like understanding influences in mental health. There's so much clarity that we sorry
Oh no, I was just gonna say there's so much clarity that you can get out of astrology,
right
and that's, I think it's a beautiful tool. Like you were saying, how you're able to kind of see family patterns within my own family. I was able to see on my maternal, the women on my maternal side, astrology. I was able to see that our moon signs are either in a fire house or a fire sign. So I was like, I come from a fiery woman background. But I want to thank you, Maitreya, for coming and speaking with us and sharing your insights and your knowledge with astrology, because again, it's so vast. You said from the mental health aspect, from the business aspect, from the personal self. It's quite a magnificent tool, and I want all my listeners and viewers to recognize that this is a really amazing tool, and I look forward to having your links so that I can leave that in the description for those to find you and connect with you. And I love how you say your soul reconnection.
Yeah, definitely. Reconnection, not connection. It's very, very intentional with that, because I feel like a lot of what we're doing is just we've done it already. We're just learning how to remember and just do it again. So yeah, I'm so privileged to have been able to come onto your podcast today and share with you. Just let me know if you can share your podcast information for the people that are live on my channel at the moment as well.
Yes, I will. Yes, so our podcast is the Divine Rebels podcast. So we are here to connect and be a conduit with all our divine rebels, spiritual teachers, leaders in the spiritual community, and recording the times we're in. So I am so excited to have this. We'll be launching fully in the spring. So be on the lookout for us. You can find us as Divine Rebels on all our social sites. And we're going to close it today. Thank you, Maitreya. Is there any final words that you'd like to give to the audience?
Yeah, just start to discover. See what you can discover. Like, this is the perfect time for discovery. And you know, with this push, with this trend of astrology, you know, it can become quite, you know, lean into like a trend, and people just kind of taking it for almost like a gimmick, but really utilize it for what it potentially can do for you. Like, there's so much benefits for it, and I just encourage you to just go on a journey and see what you can find with it.
And with that said, soul journey, reconnection. Thank you, Maitreya. Thank you to our Divine podcast listeners, and until next time, we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Okay, guys, so I'm still on live a little bit, and let me go back and see some of your comments. That was a podcast that I just did with the lovely TK Dingle. Hi Jolie, yes, another live. Logical Mermaid says, yes, the astrology series is awesome. Yes, I still got videos that are on my thing that I still need to edit. bear with me, guys. There's so much stuff going on, but I promise you I will definitely upload the rest of this series. Christine Hutchinson says, Grand Uprising, y'all. Hi, good morning. I know it's morning over that side of the waters. It's afternoon over here. Yeah, so I hope you guys kind of found that quite informative. Just understanding a bit more about astrology. I mean, you guys have heard me speak about astrology for the last few months, or for the last few months, because I haven't even been on YouTube a year yet. So some of the stuff you guys have already heard, but let me know if that was beneficial for you to be able to hear. I do actually really want to go deeper into the whole mental health thing and astrology, because that was very empowering for me to discover that type of information. So do you recommend a book to get started? Yes, there's actually a book called let me I know that they have a whole, it's a volume series, and it's got the introduction, planets in signs, planets in aspects, and planets in all of them. Let me try and see if I can find it. When I find it, what I'll do is I will put it on my community tab, and you guys can get that book, because that book really does really well to kind of break things down for anyone who really wants to understand astrology. But yeah, I can't even remember the guy's name. I know it's some crazy name, but it's a blue book, and it's like a whole volume series, and it's got planets in signs, planets in aspects, and planets in houses, and the whole introduction, which kind of goes into the introduction of astrology. But I really recommend that for anyone who kind of wants to get a holistic kind of understanding of that. There's also a book called Astrology for the Soul. There's a book called I will screenshot a lot of my books, because I've been using Scribed, which is an amazing app. So for those who read a lot like myself, I use Scribed. It's a subscription service that has access to documents, audio books, physical books, documents that people have uploaded, all that kind of stuff. And I utilize a lot of books off of there, rather than spending a lot of money getting books in, because I don't really have the space right now. So I'm trying to save money. Planets and Aspects, Understanding Your Inner Dynamics, the Planet series. I think, no, that's not actually the name of the book, I don't think, but it's a blue book with yellow writing. Like I said, I will post it in on my community tab. But yeah, there's so much that can be done with astrology that I just can't wait to begin to share with you guys, because like I said, it's the mother of sciences. There's so many things that astrology can be connected to, or literally is the science of. When we look at medical science, and even the way that they elect surgeries, they will do it based on the moon phases. They won't do certain surgeries at certain times. Like, you're not going to do any type of brain surgery or head surgery whilst the moon is in Aries, because Aries rules the head, and the moon can often not you're not gonna be quite steady in that area. Like, I'm not, like, if someone says they're gonna do some kind of brain surgery in the moon in Aries, like, I can expect some kind of hemorrhage or something, because the moon also rules water or blood, bloodline as well, DNA, all that kind of stuff. So there's so much things that connects to astrology. But yeah, I'm going to be getting going, because I'm supposed to be going out tonight. celebrating my partner's birthday. So I need to go and get myself ready. But I'm hoping this was an informative live for you guys. And yeah, I will see you guys on the other side.